Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome. Live from Books and Books. It's Saturday night. Thank you so much for being here. We are live on the internet with the thanks to the Knight Foundation for the generous support. My name is happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Steve. My name is Steve. Thank you. While you are silencing your cell phones, take a look at our Books and Books newsletter. This will give you a breakdown of all the great events we have at Books and Books every night of the week. We do about 60 every month. We have Spanish events, we have first-time authors, we have kids events, we have poetry readings. There's always something for everybody here at the bookstore, and many of them are now being live streamed. As you can see, there's a couple of cameras here in the store. And I will just tell you that during the event, we have cameras pointed at the audience for questions and answers and just for some crowd shots. So I don't want to repeat of what happened last night, so please make sure you're sitting next to who you're sitting next to. I also remind you that flash photography interferes with the live stream, so if you could refrain from doing that, we'd appreciate it. Again, I encourage you to pick up our newsletter. You can also go to our website at booksandbooks.com. You can give us your email address. You'll never be lonely with the amount of emails we send you, but you won't miss a thing that goes on here. And if you do decide to watch the event through the internet, you can always call the store while the event is in progress. You can get a signed copy of tonight's book. You can even ask some questions of the authors while the event is underway. And also, don't forget to visit the latest Books and Books down at the Arch Center in downtown Miami. We're down in the old Sears Tower. We got a full bar, full menu. The cafe is by Chef Allen, who does our cafe here, and the full bar menu is by Jack Daniels. But tonight, we are very happy to have back with us the latest edition of Lip Service, True Stories Told Out Loud. This is the double album, edited by Andrea Askowitz, badass, featuring our very own Aaron Curtis, who works right here at Books and Books. So we're very pleased with that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the mistress, I don't know if that's the correct word, of ceremonies this evening. Please welcome Andrea Askowitz. I'll take care of it.
Hi, thank you so much for coming. What I whispered in Steve's ear is, this is a really bad mic. But he said, I'll take care of it. So we have to wait. But for now, do we wait? Do I carry on? I sound better? Thank you. Well, then Steve. My name is Andrea Askowitz. I can't believe how many people are here. I'm like, yeah! Oh, God. This is where we started. This is where Lip Service started 8 years ago. And I think I may have told this story before, but I want to tell it again. The story of how Lip Service started. I grew up in Miami, but I moved. That's okay. I'm totally used to flash photography, so I'm fine. Thank you. But thank you for being sensitive. But go ahead. I love getting my picture taken. Truth be told. A little over 8 years ago, I was living in Los Angeles, where some friends of mine started a storytelling organization, a storytelling show called Lip Service. This was in LA. And we'd put on a few shows, and it lasted maybe a year and died out. That happens all over Los Angeles, because in Los Angeles, there's probably a storytelling show every single night. Every night of the week, like a monthly show every night of the week. I moved to Miami, and I was sitting in the cafe at Books and Books, and I just struck up a conversation with this very good-looking, bearded man in glasses. He was wearing dark jeans and a blue button-down shirt. I may have seen him here tonight, and I just said to the guy, where do people go in Miami to tell and hear true stories out loud? He was like, I don't know. And I told him that I had done it before in LA, and he's like, hey, why don't you do it here? The man turned out to be Mitchell Kaplan. And so 8 years ago, I said, yeah, great, cool, I'll do it. He didn't know me. I didn't know him. That's the Mitchell Kaplan of Miami. That's how cool he is. And that's how Lip Service started. So what happened after that is my mom, who grew up here, lent me her database. And so I sent an invitation to about 300 65-year-old Jewish women. And we had probably 50 of those women in our first audience. Since then, our audience has grown. Those 65-year-old Jewish women are now 8 years more than six. Happy birthday. Okay, so now they're 73. They still come to all of our shows, but we've grown and grown and grown. We got so crowded in here one time. I don't know if any of you were here, but one time it was so crowded and so hot in here, and like the stories were that someone literally like almost died and passed out. Luckily, lots of our audience members are doctors, so that woman was fine. But because we got so big and so popular, we've since moved to the Miracle Theater, where we've been for the last maybe 4 or 5 years. This is our 39th show. The next big show is May 9th, back at the Miracle Theater. And so we'll be if you're, you know what? Is this anyone's first time at Lip Service? Cool. Okay, I'm gonna pass around a sign-in sheet. It's not an attendance sheet. It's you all get credit for being here. Thank you, A+ for tonight. It's so that you can get invited to to submit a story and to come to our next show. So how Lip Service works is what we do is we put out a call for submissions to anyone in the community, anyone in the world. We had a storyteller once come right here from Guatemala. A nun from Guatemala told the story. So now we call ourselves Lip Service International. You'll see how it works tonight. Basically, well, this is it. It's 8 people, one at a time, telling a true personal story. That's it. That's all Lip Service is. And because it's our 8-year anniversary, we published this book called Badass. I want to recognize MJ Fiev, who is our publisher. She's the powerhouse behind Lomedy Books. She's the person that she came to me maybe 2 years ago and was like, Andrea, you guys have so many great stories. Let's put together an anthology. And I was like, nah. And then she was like, Andrea, come on, you have so many. Nah. Until it was 8 years. And then I was like, all right, this seems like a good time to bring together some of the best stories we've ever told and put them in one book. So, the reason 8 is our number. 8 stories, 8 minutes each, 8 storytellers. And for our 8-year anniversary, we decided to come up with this book. So what this book is it's 8 stories going this way. And then you flip it over, and it's 8 more stories. Yeah. That's why we're calling it the double album. You get 2 shows in one. I do want to say that MJ is a lot more than just a publisher. She also worked on every single story in this book. Whenever I thought the stories were ready, I'd send them to MJ and she would take them apart and put them back together and edit here and edit there. And she made these stories ready for the page. Thank you, MJ. Yeah. I was such a naysayer about this book, but I am so proud of it now. Please get it after because, well, you'll hear some of it, but you'll see. It's great. Just ask my mom. Okay, so I have some notes for myself. I already did that. Okay, so, I also want to say, is Ellen Ullman here? Hey! That's cool. No, we're just getting started. This isn't, Lip Service usually, like, kind of gets started at some point after the hour, but Books and Books is serious, so we're started on time. Ellen Ullman, so to create a book, so telling a story out loud is slightly different. It doesn't matter where you put your commas or your periods when you're talking, but it does matter on the page. And so if there are any grammatical errors still left in this book, blame our copy editor, Ellen Ullman. She is responsible. Thank you, Ellen, for copy editing. Badass. One thing I want to say about tonight's show, which is different than all of our shows, is that slightly different. These stories are a collection from all of our shows past. So some of the stories, I was thinking about this today, some of our stories were told, these are true personal stories, but some of these stories were told 8 years ago, or 7 years ago, or 5 years ago. And they were true the moment they were written. But life goes on and time passes and things change. And so the stories today may not be true today. So that's a particular challenge for the storyteller tonight. But the way I understand it is once you tell a story and once you write it down, it becomes art and it lives outside of the truth of the moment. So I just want us to remember that when the storytellers are telling their stories, that they told their stories and stood up here in front of a live audience to tell the truth of that moment, and that moment may have changed. Thanks for thinking about that. The thing that I love about lip service is that the person is standing in front of us. And I think you'll feel like you've gotten to know that person a little bit. But to help you get to know them a little more, we asked them some questions. And so for our first storyteller, I'm going to tell the storytellers what order they're going to be telling their stories in because they don't know, because I just got here a minute ago. Okay, first we're going to have, and don't clap yet because you'll get a chance to clap. I'm just doing this for them. Brenda Mezek, MJ Fiev, Christina Friedman, Esther Martinez Kniff, Aaron Curtis, and Inessa Freilichman. Those are the storytellers you're going to hear tonight. Our first storyteller, Brenda Mezek. So we asked her some questions. We said, describe yourself in 5 words. Brenda said, perspicacious. So I thought perspicacious had something to do with sweating because of the Latin root perspire. But it turns out perspicacious means having keen mental perception. She's perspicacious, direct, intuitive. She's a bibliophile, and she's evolving. We asked her what she does for work. She is a prosecutor. We asked her where she wants to be in 10 years, and she said writing in a cottage by the sea with her soulmate, who preferably has a very sexy Irish accent and a lot of patience. So if anyone with an Irish accent wants to speak with Brenda Mezek after, that would be awesome. Here to tell her story, respect, Brenda Mezek.
I'd been an assistant state attorney for Miami-Dade County for 4 months when a defense attorney came up to me during court and asked me to spell my full name. Is that the exact spelling? He said, pushing his legal pad into my face. It has to be exact. Why? My client's family wants it. When he came back and asked for a strand of my hair, I was bewildered. Absolutely not. But a few moments later, I felt a sharp yank at the back of my head. Ow! What the? This defense attorney, a licensed member of the Florida Bar, walked the strand of my hair to the defendant's family. I had been violated, but why? A Cuban-American prosecutor standing nearby whispered this word, Santeria. It was all he would say. Over the years, when I asked other Cubans about Santeria, I got the same tight-lipped reaction. One woman explained, "We might not believe, but we respect." Over the years, when I told a fellow prosecutor I thought the little cloth doll that was placed on his chair during trial was cool in a, slasher film kind of way, he gave it to me. I found another outside the courthouse, and I began to collect them, even though they burned my hands a little when I touched them. Then one evening, after a hearing involving defendants whose families were santeros, I saw a 3-foot lifelike doll in the gutter outside the courthouse. The detective who was walking me to my office politely ignored what became obvious the closer we got. It was an effigy of me. The detective led me away, but I kept looking back at the doll. What do you do if a representation of you has been left lying in a gutter? Do you leave it there where the cars could hit her? Do you pick her up? Or would that be like taking home the bride of Chucky? I left her, but I wanted answers. I signed up for a class called Ritualistic Crime Investigation with the City of Miami Police Department. I learned not to pick up those little dolls with my bare hands because they're usually covered in pulverized frog skin or urine. When we went on field trips deep into the heart of Hialeah, to graveyards and botanicas, stores that sell magical items. The first was a combined botanica and pet store for pets you want to sacrifice. The second botanica specialized in palo, the darkest, most powerful black magic. It looked like an apothecary out of Harry Potter. There were shelves of powders, potions, and dried plants. I came out of that store with a prosecutor's protection kit, complete with beads, potions, and a piece of tree bark that was supposed to heighten my persuasive powers. I was ready to battle the supernatural. 2 years later, I prosecuted a Palo high priest. He was said to have cured cancer and made the lame walk. I charged him with sexual battery. He had molested his stepdaughter from the ages of 6 to 12. When the child's autistic little sister began obsessively drawing herself being chased by spirits and lifted to heaven by angels, the family became convinced that the Palo priest was sending a warning. They had confidence in me, but they weren't taking chances. They brought in a specialist to dismantle the altar in the priest's backyard. The altar featured an assembly of black cauldrons where the spirits are housed. These cauldrons are guarded over by life-size statues. Siete Rayos, the deity of war, wielded an action figure sword, the same sword the child had watched the Palo priest hold to her mother's throat. When the child testified by closed-circuit TV, strange things happened. First, there were technical difficulties with the closed-circuit system. When we got reception, the child froze in fear and wouldn't talk. Then when she finally started talking, an electrical power surge raised the clerk's table and the judge's bench off the floor like a wave. One of the jurors gave me a look like, "No way." I turned to the Palo priest. He smiled. He's doing a life sentence now. And I'm not sure if the protective powder I dabbed behind my ears or the bark I chewed that morning had any effect on the outcome of the trial. But even if I don't believe, I too have learned to respect.
Thank you, Brenda Mezek. I forgot to mention that this book has pictures. Pictures of all of our storytellers. It's also a picture book that makes reading so much easier. Our next storyteller, so we asked our next storyteller to describe herself in 3 words. She said awkward, imaginative, searching. And then we asked her how someone else would describe her. And this is what I love about her. She did a full research paper. So some people just ask like the person sitting next to them, "Hey, how would you describe me?" But this woman, she asked her boss, her coworkers, her close friends, her grammar school teacher, her husband, her sisters, and her mom. So you get a full report on this next storyteller. She's the woman I told you about, the publisher of this book. Here to tell her story, Cycle. Please welcome MJ Fiev.
Hello, everyone. So I'm reading Cycle, a story in 4 parts about bipolar disorder. 1. I'm looking at the teacher's carefully manicured hands as she clutches the expo marker to write on the board. She's wearing a green suit. She tells her 7th grade students that green is one of her favorite colors. Green and brown. Only she says maroon instead of brown. The teacher doesn't smile. She doesn't frown either. I've been watching the teacher for months now. She arrives an hour before clocking time, plans detailed lessons, writes comments on essays, allows soft chatter during group activities. When the principal stops by, he nods, impressed by her professional demeanor, the cleanliness of a classroom. From time to time, I lose track of the teacher. I hear a voice in the background talking about parts of speech. Ma'am, a student asks, what does autopilot mean? The teacher's mouth opens. The words stream out. I want to relate to that woman in the green suit, but I feel so distant from her. All I can do is watch. Watch her manicured hands, my manicured hands, her shiny shoes, my shiny shoes. I wonder, is she really me? There's a knock on the door. A student I don't know comes in with an envelope. Are you the teacher? She asks me. Yes, I say. I'm Monsieur. She says she has a message for me. Then she says, nice suit. I smile. I love green. Green and maroon. 2. Something simple happens. Maybe an invitation to a party, a phone call to an old friend, a picture from one of my students. I feel alive. Ideas are fast. I plan a party, make all the phone calls, frantically text message and email, pay for the VIP table out of my own pocket. My calendar is suddenly full. Fashion shows on Thursday, happy hour on Friday, a shopping spree is in order. On the expressway, I hallucinate shadow people, colorful patterns, and spots. I can see outlines around moving objects. At Sawgrass Mills Mall, my sister points at the pair of shoes I'm holding. They're $200, you know. I giggle, not sure what's funny. My sister asks if I'm high. I'm naturally high, I say. I do a jig in the middle of the store. I don't care that people stare. I'm happy the whole week, cheer up my friends, mail an expensive gift to my little brother, leave witty notes on my coworker's desk. Then he says, there's a positive aura, almost palpable around you. You're so fun. We should hang out more often. I've never been so productive while others are wasting their time sleeping. Cliches make sense. I'll sleep when I'm dead. 3. I haven't slept for days. Sleeping pills work for an hour or two, then I'm awake again. And sometimes I lose track of how many pills I've taken. There is no moon, and the darkness is almost complete outside. I peer into the blackness, wishing I had the senses of a night creature. Confusion replaced clarity. I'm sitting in front of the laptop trying to remember my Hotmail password, the same password I've used for the past 10 years. My mind has burned out. At work, I almost cry when Julie asks me if I've gained weight. People are just mean and frightening. I feel ashamed. Ashamed of what? My sister asks. I say I have no idea. She hugs me, buys me lunch at JP Mulligan's, walks my dog, waters my desert roses. It will get better, she says. It always does. I remember reading about some guy who stayed awake for 266 hours, just a little more than 11 days. I wonder how long I could live without sleep. I remember reading about some guy from Dallas who led the police on a high-speed chase through 2 counties, ignoring the sirens and lights. He later said he was trying to get his dying cat to a vet. What a guy, they said, a hero. Then they found 37 dead cats inside an old freezer, right beside the man's strawberry sherbet and chicken drumsticks. At night, I'm sweating, my mouth is dry, my lips are tingling. Maybe I'm dying. Or is this all in my head? I'm not sure where my imagination ends and the cuckoo begins. 4. It does get better. I've been weighed down for days by the cuckoo that lives inside me, that always seems separate from the me that walks and sees and remembers and forgets. The cuckoo crushes my belief system, my faith, but it doesn't last. It never lasts. The teacher comes back, manicured hands, high-heeled shoes, green suit. An image stares back in the mirror. I am completely captivated. Is that really me? I want so desperately to make that woman feel safe. But every time I reach, my hand only meets the glass she's stuck behind. The teacher calls Danny, tells him she was drunk that night when she flirted with him. She just doesn't mention that she was naturally drunk. The teacher talks to Julie. Yes, I've gained weight. I didn't mean to call you a bitch. The teacher talks calmly. She's matter of fact. And I'm there again, watching. Thank you.
Thank you, MJ. Wow. Our next storyteller is Christina Friedman. Everything you need to know about Christina is that she dreams of being a well-kept housewife, and for work, she's a hustler. She also describes herself as a flight risk. Those were her 3 words, a flight risk. Here to tell her story, Tar Beach, Christina Friedman.
This is going to be a real feel-good Saturday night story. Okay. It's past noon when you wake up in your childhood bedroom, covered in sweat. The chills start first. Then hundreds of needles creep up your arms, across the back of your neck, and explode on the top of your head. You reach over for your clothes left in a pile on the floor and root around in the pockets for your drugs. There's nothing but an empty wax baggie. You're out of heroin. The withdrawal will only get worse. Without the money to continue or the stamina to quit, you need to do whatever it takes to feel human again. This isn't the way it was supposed to be. In the 80s, your mother traded up to a rich boyfriend and a comfortable apartment in Manhattan. She was busy making a living, so you were on your own. And like any young, pretty girl, you made the most of it. You had a table at the Odeon and got comped at the Limelight. You were hot shit. But in 1990, you graduated from high school and decided you didn't need college. You left to start a new life in Los Angeles, but you never got off the ground. You knew how to look good and collect free drink tickets. Other than that, your skills were somewhat limited. After 2 years in LA, you were addicted to heroin. You got a restraining order against your junkie boyfriend, and when you moved into your car, it got harder to convince yourself that life was great. You left Los Angeles and crawled back to New York. You begged your mother for forgiveness. She said you couldn't make it without her. Maybe she was right. You promised that this time it would be different. This time you would stay. You settled into your old bedroom and kept using. You were broken down, but you tried to maintain appearances. You wore sugar plum lip gloss and used concealer to hide your bruises. Your mother became suspicious anyway. She stopped giving you cash. You started stealing from her. First, you took small things like that gold locket from her father. Then she caught you walking down 2nd Avenue with her stereo. That was yesterday. Today, you need to find a way to score. You put on a blue skirt printed with flowers and a white tank from that suitcase you never unpacked. You tell yourself that you look passable, or at least better than you feel inside. This tiny confidence and some loose change scrounged together gets you on the subway. But every movement is a struggle. A furnace hidden somewhere inside you opens and closes without warning. Your temperature swings wildly. Then the real pain begins, deep inside your bones. On the train, you notice people sitting with their belongings unsecured. A purse you could snatch and run with, a chain that could be grabbed from around a frail woman's neck. You remember all the things you said you'd never do before heroin. You reach your stop. On Clinton Street, you turn left. A dealer named Hector stands in his usual spot on the stoop. Sweat beads on your upper lip. Your mouth waters. You approach Hector, trying to look casual, not desperate. He motions towards the green metal door of the tenement across the street and leads you inside. The hall reeks of urine and rotting trash. You follow Hector up the stairs. Acid crawls from your stomach into the back of your throat. You stop on the landing and swallow hard to push it down. At the top of the stairs, Hector opens a door that leads to the roof. The tarred roof is hot and black. Metal flecks dot the surface like bits of broken seashells. It reminds you of stories from your mother's childhood. She grew up in a tenement like this one. Her father drank. They never took vacations. Instead, she and her siblings went up to the roof to escape. They pretended they were at the shore. Your mother called it Tar Beach. Hector hands you a baggie filled with brown powder, worth about $20. You smile and tell him you don't have any cash today. You hope he'll extend you a little credit like he's done in the past. Hector smiles back. Maybe this will be easy. Then the smile fades and his eyes narrow. You shove the baggie into your pocket and walk to the door. He grabs your arm and drags you back onto the roof. You look around for help, but all you see are the empty windows of distant warehouses. Hector pushes you down on the ground and pins you there. He climbs on top of you and fumbles for a zipper. Sweat seeps through his dirty white t-shirt. He smells of Ballantine ale and cigarettes. Hector tears at a condom wrapper with his teeth, and you brace yourself. You close your eyes tight and begin to disappear. You imagine you are on Tar Beach. Hector's breath sounds like the ocean. His motion feels like waves crashing on the shore. Your shame will wash over you and drift out to sea. The door to the roof swings open. You make out the figure of a man in the doorway. He screams, "Get out of here or I'll call the cops." Hector leaps up, zips his pants. Your legs are shaking too much to move. Hector offers you his hand and you take it. As you stand, you're wobbly, but it only takes a few seconds for your feet to follow your instincts. You run quickly without looking back. You run away from Hector. You run past the man in the doorway, down the stairs, and out onto the sidewalk, all the way to Houston Street. You never stop running. Your steps only slow when you reach the intersection. Traffic speeds by in both directions. You head north. Adrenaline gives way to dope sickness, but now you have the cure. You find a diner and go into the bathroom. In the last stall on the left, you slide the latch shut. You collapse on your knees on the cold tile floor. Sweat runs down your back. Your stomach heaves. You lean over the toilet, but you have nothing left. You fall back against the stall and pull a thin strip of aluminum foil from your pocket. You tap the drugs out onto it and fumble for your lighter. You heat the underside of the foil until the powder melts into a pool of black tar. As it bubbles, smoke rises, and you inhale deeply. The exhale brings instant relief. In this dream world, you don't have hard choices to make. The darkness inside you is lifted. You float off the dirty bathroom floor and above the gray city streets. You fly so high that when you look down on the blackened rooftops below, there is no fear of falling.
Thank you, Christina, for telling that story. Thanks for the courage to tell that story. Thank you, everybody who's ever told a story at Lip Service, and to everybody who's ever submitted a story, and to everyone who's thinking of submitting a story. I'm changing the order a little bit. The next storyteller is Anessa Freilichman. Anessa is a Feng Shui practitioner and psychologist. She is the Feng Shui healer in residence at Canyon Ranch Hotel and Spa in Miami Beach. When she's not busy Feng Shuiing the world, she takes memoir writing classes at Lip Service Institute, which is some of the best therapy she's ever had. Here to tell her story, still here, Anessa Freilichman.
I have 2 cold sores as big as dimes on my upper lip. They look like rhino horns. Thanks to these new beauty marks, Michael, my fiancé, gives me a nickname in honor of my Soviet upbringing, Russian Rhino. Because it's too painful to smile in the normal way, I redesign my laugh, molding my mouth into an O. While we eat lunch, one of the cold sores turns into a scab and rips off. A piece of lip lands on top of my salmon and cucumber salad. Even though we're engaged, the relationship is less than a year old, too young for gross out moments like this. Ouch, Michael says. There goes my sex appeal, I say. My lip is bleeding. He says, leprosy is not such a bad thing. Michael is my Jewish, raven-haired, white African wonder. After we were matched on eHarmony, we did the long-distance thing for 4 months, fell in lust, then in love. When Michael proposed, I relocated from Seattle to Miami. So now that you've seen what's behind the cold sore, are we still getting married? I smile, but the question isn't entirely in jest. He says nothing, his golden eyes clueless. Hello? Would you please say something? Anything? I hear my mom's voice and her thick Russian accent in my head. Stop ask stupid question. Michael, nice boy. Let him be. Michael works as a chief financial officer. His accounting goes way beyond his occupation. He's more than economical with his words. He's miserly. He says, why don't you throw that thing away first? Then we can talk about it. Not exactly the encouragement I'm looking for, but better than silence. I'm not sure how long I'm standing by the garbage bin when Michael walks up to me. He says, why are you staring into the trash? What's wrong? I say nothing and everything. I was already in a bad mood before the collapse of the cold sore. I miss my parents. I miss my friends. I've gained 5 pounds. I'd spent 10 years in my last relationship and it had gone nowhere. By the time I met Michael, I was in my late 30s. I knew what I wanted, so when he proposed after 4 months, I thought, this is it. But I'm feeling insecure. A few days before, while we were cuddling in bed, I said, my vagina needs attention. Michael said, stop talking about your vagina. I heard my mom's voice again. What's wrong with you? Why you say this word, vagina? So vulgar. Men don't like women who speak like this. Stop talk so much. But it's a part of me, I said. Like my hair, eyelashes, and elbows. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't exist. Yes, I know, he said, but you don't have to keep pointing it out. I know it's there. Michael needs mystery to feel passion. I need transparency. When I asked him to explain what he meant by mystery, he said, if I told you, then it wouldn't be mysterious anymore. I know what a cold sore means. I looked it up in one of my self-help books. It's a festering worry. I can't help but think, is the eruption on my face a sign of the fear of rejection that's festering inside of me? I finish my salad and say, honey, I'm taking myself under the covers. Michael never knows what to do with me when I get this way. I face plant on our bed and slam the door behind me. Then I feel guilty and leave it a crack open. The comforter is so dreary. I want to scratch holes in it with my nails. Michael insists that it's green, but it's gray. I'm a feng shui practitioner, and I know that gray is the color for indecision. We need lots of decisiveness to make it to the chuppah. He's 46 and I'm 37. This is the first time either of us has been engaged and the first time he's ever lived with someone. I've tried balancing the gray with the red pillow, the color for action and passion, but we need more. We're integrating lives, but it's taking longer than I imagined, and it's becoming harder to stay positive. I know that a year isn't a long time to spend in a relationship when you're 22, but I'm not 22. I want to get married. Michael, however, doesn't want to plan the wedding until we get more solid in the relationship. I don't feel that we need to be more solid. I'm perfectly fine with the malleable state of our connection. It can take years to achieve stability in a relationship, and I don't have that long. Thanks to my mother, I'm constantly reminded that the clock is ticking. Inessa, you're not young girl anymore. You must go to doctor and make sure everything work down there. I'm scared of losing Michael. He's the first man that I actually want to wake up with, day after day. I love the way he smells, his touch, and sense of humor. He gives me stability. And except for the gray comforter, Michael has changed everything else for me. He's purchased a second nightstand after I insisted that having only one could hold his single status in place. Very bad feng shui, I said. It's called the one-night stand syndrome. But I've already found you, he said. What difference does it make now? Yes, I know, but don't you want to keep me? He gave me the master bathroom while he uses the guest bath. He even hung burnt orange curtains to protect our good energy from flying out the window. An hour later, Michael comes into the bedroom. I'm done spinning like a dreidel. He lies down next to me, puts his hand on my heart, and smiles. He says, my Russian rhino, stop picking on the scab. Let it be. I stop picking. Michael says, you're beautiful, I love you. He doesn't tell me that everything will work out, but maybe he doesn't need to. He's still here. Thank you.
Thank you, Inessa. Has anyone seen our next storyteller, Esther Martinez Caniff? She's that giant. Oh. What? Is Sean here? Oh. Esther's next. Our next storyteller is that pregnant lady with the giant belly. Esther Martinez Caniff came on board 6 years ago and took this show from a free shop here to a giant Miami institution. She's pregnant with twins. And so, Esther, I have a little present for you. While you're nursing two babies, I want you to sometimes remember to wear your lip service hat. Okay. Well, I won't be washing my hair. So. Right. Here to tell her story, born again, Esther Martinez Caniff.
Hi. I might have to do this because my belly's like in the way. The baptismal pool at First Baptist Church of Fort Lauderdale is the size of a large jacuzzi, but without the bubbles. I stepped down into it where Pastor Jeremy was waiting. We were both wearing floor-length baptismal gowns like choir robes. Mine was pure white. We faced the crowd. There were about 2,000 members that day, typical for a Sunday, and as I scanned the pews, I felt grateful. Grateful to have found my faith. Grateful that the pool was heated. I'd been there before, not in that pool, but at that moment, in that ritual, which was supposed to change my life forever. I was about to be born again. Again. 16 years earlier, when I was 16, most of my peers were experimenting with normal things like drugs and sex. Me, I was experimenting with the Holy Spirit. I hated my life, like most teens. But when I say my parents were crazy, I don't mean they were overbearing. I mean, when my mother grounded me, she kept me home from school. I mean, there was a daily fight in my house, which usually ended with a visit from the cops and my mother on the hood of a car, howling and crying and begging my stepfather to stay. I mean, when I was finally allowed to have a boyfriend, he caught a fist in the face protecting me from my stepfather. Then that same boyfriend who'd acted as my only protector, my first everything, dumped me for my best friend. My mother, who was grieving her own heartbreak, said we needed a new start. We moved from Miami Beach to a house in Opa-locka, the Compton of South Florida. If you don't know where that is, everyone know Opa-locka? My mother and my stepfather divorced and then remarried each other. My older sister turned 18 and moved out. I felt absolutely alone, and I had acne. I started skipping school and spent afternoons hiding out in the park, listening to Depeche Mode on my Discman. I wore dark eyeliner, short skirts, and black army boots, imitation Doc Martens. I gave myself a tattoo with India ink stolen from a Woolworths. When that failed to get my mother's attention, I pierced my own nose with a sewing needle. My mother said I needed Jesus. She dragged me to a Pentecostal church. She said if I knew what was good for me, I wouldn't put up a fight. I didn't. The Church of New Life was on the second floor of a strip mall in Hialeah. We didn't exactly fit in. The women of New Life were humble and soft-spoken and didn't wear makeup or nail polish. The pastor was a sweet woman who reminded me of the fairy godmother from Cinderella, stout with gray hair, naturally pink cheeks, and pillowy arms. The first time she hugged me, I trusted her. The service was pretty unremarkable, simple worship songs followed by a reading of some passage from the Gospel of Luke. But then, during the closing prayer, Pastor Isabel began calling on the Holy Spirit. Everyone closed their eyes. All around me, the congregation stood with heads bowed, whispering prayers. I kept my eyes open. The pastor's pleas grew louder, and occasionally a congregant yelled out, "Alleluia!" And the whispering intensified until it felt like a wind blowing through that small room. Then the pastor's words lost their shape, and she began crying out, "Sarebedeka bajo bahrakash kulu kundalaria, keshke tu kule sala meshke kula sare." I was scared. Women who'd been meek and mild before the service started to shake and shout. One of them fainted, and the whole room erupted with the strange babbling. My mother peeled one eye open, leaned into me, and whispered, "They're speaking in tongues." If there's a language in heaven, shouldn't it be Dante's Italian? Now, that is a beautiful language. Glossolalia, the term for speaking in tongues, is not pretty. The words, if you can call them words, are all ers and phlegm sounds. So why did it move me? Because I sensed there was something primitive taking place, something that was being communicated to my soul, even if my brain didn't recognize the sounds. Because I trusted Pastor Isabel. because I needed to believe in transformation, because I needed to believe. After the service, Pastor Isabel and I sat together for a long time. She asked me about my life. I told her that I felt abandoned by my father, neglected by my mother, unloved and misunderstood and entirely empty. She listened. And then Pastor Isabel told me a story. She said Jesus' disciples were in the upper room during the Pentecost, the holiday which celebrates God giving the Torah to the Israelites. They were praying for the Holy Spirit when suddenly, and this she read right out of the Bible, a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting, and all of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues. I became obsessed with this story. Every chance I got, I knelt and prayed for the Holy Spirit. Nothing happened. Pastor Isabel said God would grant any petition made by a pure heart. So I thought I needed to purify myself. So I signed up for baptism classes, memorized my verses, and 4 weeks later, stood on the shore of a public beach wearing a white robe. 30 yards away, Pastor Isabel was waist deep in the water. I walked towards her. The shore was rocky under my feet, the water ice cold. To still myself, I imagined John the Baptist waiting for me in the River Jordan, where he would support my body as I faced the heavens before being submerged. I'd spend an eternal second beneath the surface, buried with Christ. Then I'd reemerge, resurrected, a new creation. And there would be the Holy Spirit hovering over my head in the form of a white dove. And heavenly trumpets would blast, and angels would sing, and all my acne would be gone. Pastor Isabel interrupted my fantasy. She dipped me back before I was able to pinch my nose shut. Salt water rushed into my nostrils and my eyes, and I forgot to pray for the Holy Spirit. And before I realized it, I was out of the water, and people on the shore were clapping and shouting. Pastor Isabel looked at me and smiled. I scanned myself for Holy Spiritedness. I wanted to say something inspired, something in tongues. All I could think of was Lionel Richie's All Night Long. Tambolita se de moya, hey, jumbo jumbo. I didn't say anything. The Church of New Life had failed to deliver on its name, and shortly after my baptism, I stopped attending. 2 years ago, I joined another Baptist church. I was in a similar place as the 16-year-old me. I didn't live with my mom anymore, but the man I thought I would marry dumped me. They say God loves a broken spirit. Maybe he also loves a broken heart. Again, I needed a new start. I signed up for another round of baptism classes. The difference is this last time, when I looked at the baptismal waters, I didn't expect miraculous transformation. I knew the only change that would result from my baptism was the change I was committing to make within myself. Before my second baptism, I thought of Pastor Isabel, who, in a strange way, had put a promise in my heart. I don't believe in speaking in tongues. I think it's crazy. But I believe wholeheartedly that she believed in it. I believed in her. And in this world without proof of anything supernatural, isn't the real magic that any of us manage to believe at all? Pastor Jeremy placed a hand on my shoulder. We prayed. He dipped me back. And this time, I remembered to pinch my nose. Thank you.
I really want to do a show where people tell a story and sing a song. It's not my own original idea, but it would be Lip Service the musical. So if anyone has a song and a story, approach me after. Let's get that happening. Before I introduce our last storyteller, I want to give you a chance to put our next show in your calendars. if you want. So you can take out your phones right now. I give you permission to turn them on. Our next show is May 9th. The show is going to be a collaboration with an organization called Aqua Foundation. Is anyone from Aqua here? All these Aqua people are here. I think that there's going to be a theme, and the theme is going to be power. So think of stories that about a time you felt powerful, or a time you did not feel powerful, or a time you were in a situation where power was subverted, or a time the power went out. We're very open to your interpretation of power. Check our website, www.lipservicestories.com, for how to tell us what we're looking for what is that called? Our guidelines. Please check our website and sign our mailing list. So we'll tell you, we're open now for submissions, but you'll get an invitation to submit. Our last storyteller tonight is Aaron Curtis. Oh, he has fans. That's unfair. Aaron works here. He's the book buyer at Books and Books. Great, great guy. When we asked Aaron what he does for fun, he says he loves to cook. Actually, he won a red ribbon at the Miami-Dade Youth Fair for his harvest chili. We asked him to tell us something his mother doesn't know, and he said that when you text someone, you don't need to put your name. If you want to follow along while Aaron reads his story is on page 69. There are actually 2 69s in this book. Here to tell his story, we are more than these shells, Aaron Curtis.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. I met Kelly while selling tickets for a dance during my sophomore year of high school. Dressed in bulky, long-sleeved layers despite the 80-degree weather, Kelly stood out. She had black hair and loose curls, dark brown eyes, pale skin with high color in her cheeks, and perfect bow lips, snow white in wire-framed glasses. Anorexia and bulimia were just becoming part of the national consciousness. One look at Kelly's 5'7", 90-pound frame, and I assumed I'd met my first real-life sufferer. Then she spoke. Kelly sounded like a willow tree, delicate-looking but impossible to topple. She bought 2 tickets for the Winter Cotillion. She was leaning on crutches and joked about being off them by December. She smiled easily and with genuine joy. I didn't know it at the time, but the crutches were due to her 3rd broken hip. Kelly had been born months premature, less than 2 pounds of struggling baby bird tissue in an incubator. Doctors told her parents Kelly wouldn't last the night. When Kelly lasted the night, her doctors called it a miracle. They told Kelly's parents she wouldn't last a week. Thus the map of Kelly's life was drawn. Doctors set deadlines they called impossible, and Kelly proved them wrong. Over the years, Kelly's doctors advised her parents to make funeral arrangements so often it became a joke. Kelly was 17 when we met. She had been battling cystic fibrosis her entire life. 2 things about her illness bothered her. She had a port in her chest for needles and IVs, what she called her 3rd nipple, and the tips of her long, delicate fingers were slightly bulbous. Birdie hands, she called them. Apart from complaining about those things from time to time, she was the most optimistic person I had ever met. More than anything, Kelly loved to laugh. I'd push jokes until she screamed, her voice losing air until she dissolved into a coughing fit, leaving her red-faced, tears running down her eyes. It sounds terrible, but it was an ecstatic loss of control. She said those laughing jags were worth the coughing fits. In contrast to Kelly, I spent most of my days miserable, snapping at people closest to me, taking umbrage at every minor inconvenience, punching my knuckles bruised and bloody on the concrete floor of my parents' basement to relieve some of the pain inside. God, you're such an asshole, Kelly told me once. I can't remember what I said to provoke it, but I remember she wasn't joking. Can't you just be happy? No, I couldn't. My misery was hormonal, worn like an uncomfortable coat in rough weather. A few weeks after I sold Kelly those tickets, I began dating her best friend. Kelly watched my 2-year relationship with Mickey unfold. Mickey and I fought almost constantly, if you can call my passive-aggressive silent brooding fighting. She knew Mickey took my virginity and the lead in all things sexual. She knew Mickey became pregnant in our 2nd year. She knew Mickey got an abortion, broke up with me, and started college, leaving me behind in high school. That summer, Kelly and I went to see Edie Brickell and the New Bohemians in concert. Even though Kelly had graduated high school, she confessed a crush on someone who'd be starting his senior year in the fall. Playing the girlfriend role, I giggled with her over the details. He's tall, with black hair and brown eyes, she said. I threw out some names, but she shook her head. His initials are AC. Alan Clark, I said immediately. No. She turned from the stage, looking up at me hopefully. Well, Art Costanza isn't really tall. No. And Alan Carter is going to be a junior. Yeah. Finally, I realized who she meant and panicked. Kelly had told Mickey one of her biggest fears was dying a virgin. I couldn't face that kind of pressure, being someone's first, last, and only. Kelly had also briefly dated my best friend. In the manner of adolescent boys, he had described her body in some detail. The small torso, the ribs pressing against her skinny flesh, her lack of any breast tissue, the shelf of her pelvic bone. Despite her height, and as pretty as Kelly's face was, I would have felt like a pedophile. I didn't have the emotional capacity to look past the flesh at the soul beneath, the soul I loved. Or maybe I was just scared to grow closer to someone who I knew could leave at any moment. The doctors had marked age 20 as the new impossible milestone. Kelly joked that this time they meant it. Of course, I articulated none of this. Standing beside her at the concert, I went silent. I stared at the stage while Kelly watched me in the dark. She knew my patterns by then and got the message before too long. Never mind, she said, turning to the stage. Forget it. There's no one. My callous reaction was immature, regrettable, and impossible to forget. Our relationship never recovered, and we drifted apart. She died shortly after, at 19 years old. She had started college. Her boyfriend was a junior in high school, a dark-haired stutterer with whom Kelly and I had shared a drama class. I wondered if he had taken her virginity but didn't have the guts or the gall to ask. In the casket, I expected her to be emaciated. Instead, steroids had bloated her torso and distorted her pretty face. Regret over how our friendship ended mixed with my grief. The tear-streaked faces of her family and our friends became accusations, like they knew I was guilty of abandoning her when she most needed me. I'm nearly twice as old as I was when I looked into that casket. I wish I could say I always look on the bright side of life because of Kelly, but it's a lesson I relearn often. My wife and I met in college. She was diagnosed with IgA nephropathy at age 24, rejected a kidney transplant at 26, and has been on dialysis for 10 years. In her complaints over the myriad ways the disease has affected her body, I hear the ghost of my childhood friend. Now I don't pull away. I offer assurances that she is more beautiful today than the day we met, which is nothing but the absolute truth. She accuses me of wearing love goggles. If that's the case, I have Kelly to thank for showing me their importance.
Aaron, wow. Thank you so much for your beautiful story. And thank you guys tonight for being such a beautiful audience and for being really the best audience anywhere in the world for the past 8 years. Seriously, you guys are so supportive and so beautiful and so quick to laugh. And thank you. So this book is for sale. And they are selling it here. If you liked what you heard tonight and you want to hang out with storytellers in bed alone, I encourage you to buy this book and think of it as supporting Books and Books and supporting lip service and supporting the arts. I want to close with the what's it called, the dedication. I have allergies tonight. To everybody who has a story, which is everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.